What is your biggest concern right now, and where are you laser focused? It appears this president could be implicated in impacting the sanctity of our election process and also perhaps putting our national security at risk.
I think David is absolutely right. What's always made this so challenging is the public has learned different facts just within the Russia investigation in a day-by-day, drip-by-drip fashion. And when you learn it that way, it's hard to see how does this all fit together and just how damning is the picture that it presents. And it is a pretty damning portrait of multiple contacts by different people within the Trump campaign with different Russians, multiple lies about these meetings that first denying they took place and then admitting they took place, but then concocting false stories about what the meetings were about. No, it was about adoptions. It's a pretty damning portrait. And even now, we don't see all the pieces. I think some of the most interesting aspects of the filings in the last week, from my point of view, is the reference, for example, that Michael Cohen provided information that is core to the special counsel's investigation vis-a-vis the Trump organization. Now, what does that mean? If it's central to the special counsel's investigation, it's also central to ours in the House Intelligence Committee, and it certainly sounds like that's on the issue of collusion or conspiracy. Does that mean that there's more than the Trump Tower that the Trump organization was involved in with the Russians? Or is there more to that transaction than we know? One of the things that I think will be fascinating to see if we can glean from the plea agreement with Butina, and I'm pretty circumspect about how much cooperation we can really expect from her, is that question that she asks the president, that he uses as the opportunity to express his opposition to Russian sanctions. Was that a prearranged question? And if so, then who was doing the prearranging? Bob Mueller may know some of the answers to questions. It's our intention, the Intel Committee, to find out and do what we said we would at the beginning, which is follow the evidence wherever it may lead.
Congressman, it's Willie Geist. You will take over as chair of that Intelligence Committee just over a month from now. As you know, there's great anticipation of that among Democrats, among progressives. What will be day one inside that committee for you? Where do you begin as you sift through all we've seen now over the last couple of years, as all we've heard out of the Mueller investigation, all these documents we've seen from the Southern District of New York? Where will you begin in that committee in Congress?
Well, right now we are outlining our investigative plan, which is really something we've been working for quite some time. But now that we know we'll have the gavel and subpoena power, what witnesses will we want to bring in first? What documents should we go after? There's certain ones that we're well aware of, and of course I would put Michael Cohen near the top of the list. I think he has demonstrated a willingness to cooperate, certainly with special counsel. We're already in touch with his attorney to find out other areas of his testimony that may have been inaccurate or incomplete. We certainly want to explore what I was mentioning earlier, that area of core interest vis-a-vis the Trump organization. But there are numerous documents that we were not allowed to pursue. Well, one of the first documents that I want to make outreach to get is the phone records that would indicate whether the president was in the know about the Trump Tower meeting with the Russians in advance. That is the meeting with Jared Kushner and with his son and with Paul Manafort that he denied knowledge of. We know that there's a call from a blocked number during the setup of that meeting. We want to know, was that from the President of the United States?
Congressman Noah Rothman, so it seems as though, according to public reporting, the Russian provocation in the Sea of Azov may have just been a prelude. We have seen from public reporting commercial satellite imagery that there's been a buildup on the border, and that Vladimir Putin may see a window between now and Ukraine's elections on the 31st for another land grab. How would you like to see the administration respond, perhaps in order to preempt that, or even afterwards in order to punish them, considering that we've seen at least the sanctions regime that they've imposed on Moscow doesn't seem to have imposed any sort of discipline on Moscow?
Well, I think the key is not to wait until there's another effort at a land or sea grab. And there are a lot of ways the administration can do it. It first and foremost can telegraph to the Russians that this would meet a very severe response, that it would require additional military assistance to Ukraine. Frankly, I think one of the mistakes that was made during the Obama administration was not providing defensive weapons to Ukraine. We had committed to them in 1994 as part of the Budapest Memorandum that we would help assure their sovereignty. I don't think we fully lived up to that. So beginning now with the provision of stronger defensive weapons, but also strong diplomatic outreach to the Russians to assure them that we will push back hard if there is further aggression, that we're serious about implementation of the Minsk Accords, and they need to get the heck out of Ukraine.
David, the congressman has talked about a damning portrait, but it is an incomplete portrait. Robert Mueller is the artist who is going to give us the full portrait. Are you at all concerned about too much emphasis being placed on two separate investigations? We get it piecemeal, dropped every couple of weeks by Mueller, and this fever for impeachment as opposed to just let's wait for the whole thing to drop and take a look at it.
Well, I think it's probably a mistake to focus too much on any one investigation. I know that Congressman Schiff's committee is going to look at areas that Mueller doesn't look at. For example, money laundering is an area where they're likely to go and look much more deeply. And of course we have the Southern District of New York with another investigation. We've got other suits. The crimes of this president are so sweeping that they are more than any one investigation can actually take in. You know, if you talk about a fever for impeachment, I think there's plenty of reason why this president would be impeached based on just what we know. But would it benefit us to wait a few months longer, hear what Mueller has to say, watch the committee investigations on the Hill, see where the Southern District of New York and the Emoluments Clause and these other things take us? Yes, I think it would benefit us, because I think it's very, very important that we send a message that the American system of justice works, that presidents are not above the law, and that when we call a president to account, we're doing so with deeply grounded, rigorously investigated cases that make the case beyond any reasonable doubt, because we don't want to create a situation where people are saying it was a political move as opposed to a move in the name of justice.
Congressman Susan oh, I'm sorry, Mika.
No, go ahead, Susan.
Congressman, you have a lot on your plate, obviously, with the Mueller investigation and looking into things with Trump. And should perhaps you wait until the full Mueller investigation comes out to pursue that? In the meantime, you're the head of going to be the incoming chair of the Intel Committee. What about things like Saudi Arabia or North Korea, for example? I mean, I think that warrants what the president has said, a severe investigation into North Korea.
Well, these are going to be very high priorities for us, and you're absolutely right. Russia gets the most attention, but it's not the only threat that we face, either internally or externally. We are going to be doing deep dives into Saudi Arabia and North Korea. One of the responsibilities of our committee is to determine whether we're getting the best intelligence from these places, what those intelligence agencies can tell us, not just about the Khashoggi murder, but about our reliance on Saudi Arabia, on the stability of Saudi Arabia, on Saudi's role in the war in Yemen, the peace process. With respect to North Korea, can we believe the assurances by our president that we can now sleep well at night because North Korea is irrevocably on the path of denuclearization? That isn't consistent, I think, with what I'm seeing, and we want to make sure that the country and policymakers have the best the use of the best possible intelligence to assess our foreign policy. So that will be absolute priorities. We are not going to be able to have the luxury of waiting until Bob Mueller is finished. There was some discussion of that initially, whether the Congress should defer to the special counsel. That would have meant we would be deferring for a year and a half. But we are going to look at issues in particular that may not be the subject of the special counsel's work, and money laundering is very much among them.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much.